today. Dunik is our SAP Solution Manager Architect and Focus Build Coach, and Fisnik is our SAP Solution Manager Process Management and Focus Build Coach. Dunik is actually going to go through a slide going over SAP Solution Manager 7.2, and after he's done, we'll have Fisnik going through a live demo. During this whole process, if you have any questions, you should see a menu on your screen which will allow you to ask those questions. Feel free to ask throughout the presentation. I will be bringing this up again, so if someone hasn't heard it, you might hear it twice. With that being said, Dunik, if you wouldn't mind, start.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. Under these special circumstances. I hope every one of you is safe, you and your families, and remain safe. With that said, as Tom mentioned, my name is Donik Vladimir. I'm the ALM architect and a focus build coach here at CoreALM. So what I want to start with is just give you a brief description of who we are. So CoreALM is a dedicated team of experts focused on digital transformation lifecycle. By establishing a strong digital core foundation leveraging SAP HANA, Solution Manager, Application Lifecycle Management, and DevOps. Essentially, we're a services organization providing different services, mainly focused around Solution Manager and integrated tools, whether it be Jira, Azure, ServiceNow, so all these tools that you might already use, and we provide different services. As far as the processes, project and portfolio management, business process management, test management, ITSM, change management, DevOps, and then we do a lot of custom work in terms of the user experience, front-end design, and any custom work that's required around bringing the whole ALM or making it easy for you to adopt the methodology and the agile deployment of the products. Here we have just some of the awards and certifications that we've earned over the years. And on the agenda today, what we have is we're going to talk a little bit about Solution Manager 7.2. It's been around for a couple of years, but we want to just talk about it, some of the things that you might not be aware of, and then dive into the business process management. We'll give you an overview. We'll give you an introduction into some of the concepts around solution, branches, hierarchy, how everything is laid out, what the tool can do for you, how it can help you out. And then once we build that foundation, we're going to talk about the business process monitoring, which kind of goes on top of the solution documentation, although it can live in as a sidecar, but ideally these would be the building blocks. And then we're going to take a look at demos. So Fisnik is going to take you through that. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So given the amount of time that we have, so feel free to go ahead and type out the questions that you might have on the chat session or the question area of the tool here that we're using today. And with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So in terms of the overview, we're going to take a look at Solution Manager 7.2. It's really the first release that adopts SAP HANA. So with 7.2, one thing we want to mention here is that you can use, if you have active maintenance with SAP, you can run Solution Manager on HANA without any additional licensing cost. Hardware, all that would have to be procured separately, but the cost of the license for running Solution Manager on HANA, it's already included in your maintenance package. So a lot of customers were noticing or taking this step to get their basis team familiar. For those of you that don't have HANA in your environment, so kind of get your feet wet, if you will, and get used to standard operating procedures like as backups and recovery and things like that. So, and then the other one big thing regarding Solution Manager 7.2 is that everything is moving to the SAP UI5 front end, the Fiori, the tile-based, the role-based Fiori tiles. Which kind of, it's a new standard for SAP going into the S4 environment. So there's going to be the same look and feel, whether you're using the S4 or Solution Manager. So that's the idea moving forward. Now we're going to start looking at the process management piece and what customers and pretty much every customer, every SAP shop or non-SAP shop out there deals with issues as far as their challenge with synchronizing business models, processes, documentation, solution. So you always end up going through a deployment phase. You get to go live. Documentation is everywhere. There's really no centralized place for having all of these artifacts where to be stored, or there's no processes around management, around operations phase of the application. So SAP has focused heavily on developing the solution documentation portion, which essentially is a tool. It's a web-based tool that allows you to create business processes end-to-end from a high level, from a very detailed level, and document everything about your system. So you can build multi-level hierarchies, processes. They're built in the libraries. We're going to talk about that. And then the processes are validated and optimized continuously based on real usage. And then we'll talk about different versioning and all this. But it's essentially a full repository. And to achieve that, what SAP has done is this has been around, but they've focused even more on the concept of the solution. And what a solution is really the sum of all of your systems, applications, processes, whether it be documentation, actual systems, transaction codes that are used, all business process documentation like PDDs, BCDs, there's all different acronyms that are there, technical specs, functional specs. And all of those versions of those documents are stored in a solution. And as you can see here, you have all the executables, test cases, diagrams, configuration. So essentially, this becomes a single source of truth for your organization. And this solution, the way it looks like, as you can see here, it's more of organized into folders, and then processes or scenarios, processes, and process steps. And we'll talk about those in the next slide here. But it's all organized based on how your business is structured. And when we take a look at that, we start on the left side with the business process. Then we have the end-to-end business process. You can build them in a modular fashion. We'll talk about that. And then the deeper you dive in, you get into more detail as to how your business runs. At every step, every node that you're seeing here, every column that you're seeing, any of those icons that you would click, in the bottom of the screen, you would see related test cases, transactions, configuration document, configuration items, a bunch of elements that you can store in here. You can store diagrams, and we'll talk about those. So essentially, it's really your only source of everything in your environment. Now, with having such a solution in place, what you end up with is the problem of versioning, the problem of how do you develop, how do you deploy, how do you go through innovation. So what SAP has done, they've added the concept of branches. So you have a solution, and then you have branches. What a branch is essentially, think of it as a version of your documentation. Or not just documentation. When we say documentation, we mean everything, not just actual Word documents or Microsoft Excel documents. So it presents a version of your documentation. So for example, just like you do when you deploy a change today, you go through development to QA, maybe pre-production, and then production system. We can have the same thing here with the documentation, meaning you have a production copy of the document, which is used by operations team, that maybe the analyst, anybody that comes in. That's how your business currently runs. If you have any new development going in or new enhancements, maybe an upgrade going on, you would work in either maintenance branch or in the design branch or development branch. That's just strategically depends how you decide to deploy the tool. But the option is there to have pretty much as many branches as you want. You probably don't want to go too far out, but that's where you maintain all the documents, and then you move changes to production, just like you move your transport. So essentially, when you go live, you go through cutover activities where you move transports to production. You also move documents to production. So it's essentially everything moves together. So this is very nice because you can, depending on where you are on the project, you can have different versions of the document, and then everything is merged together when you go to production. When we look at the business processes, there's at a high level, there's really two ways that we look at this. Is you have the end-to-end business processes, which can also be broken down in two more areas, but essentially you have end-to-end business processes and you have what's called the libraries. And we're going to talk a little bit more about libraries and the business end-to-end business processes. End-to-end business processes, what they are is really the steps that span across the entire organization. For example, an order to cash, procure to pay, process. So it's from the very first step that happens, it spans across multiple organizations or departments or whatever the terminology you use in your organization till the very last step. And those are called the end-to-end processes. And they really don't stop at organizational borders. Then another way to build them, it would be the modular processes. Depend on how you run your business or how your processes are structured. You might want to build them in a modular way, whereas you really you separate them and run them within a specific operational area. So you can have like a modular process for the specific organization. That you, for example, accounts receivable will have their own steps, and you can still tie them together at a high level. But essentially, it gives you the flexibility for building end-to-end processes for modular processes. And then we have the libraries. The libraries is really all the building blocks. Think of the Legos, all the little blocks are located in the library. So sometimes the same Lego piece is used to build an airplane as it is to build a ship, for example. So here, the idea is the same here. So we want to have little building blocks in the libraries, and then those items are used to build the end-to-end processes. And essentially what we end up with is with the reuse concept with the libraries. What that means is that you have one copy of an executable. So for example, I don't know, user management, SU01. You define the transaction once. And every time user management is required in your processes, you just reuse that from the library. So you don't have to create, 100 copies every time it's used. So that really, that concept really promotes the reusability. And as we can see here, we can see the process in the process step library and executable libraries. All these hold the little building blocks and the artifacts, and then you build the end-to-end process using those. So we mentioned, we've been talking about, executables, interfaces, diagrams, and all these pieces. The other thing that Solution Manager introduces is it allows you, it brings up the entire framework around document management. We're talking specifically around Word documents or any other documents, which means you can have description, you can have different use cases, you can have different types of documents, you can create custom document types, workflow, approval workflow, digital signature for all different kinds of documents, whether they're functional specs, technical specs, configuration guides, all of those, and you can build custom processes or workflow for each of those, and you can get just about as elaborate as you want. And all of this would be involved with, you can integrate with notifications, and people are notified when it's their turn to do their piece. So it's really nice to see a tool that kind of offers all these pieces. Last but not least, another very good feature that a lot of customers are very happy about is the integrated graphical BPMN process editor. What this is, it really allows you to build the diagrams, which in a lot of cases we have seen, there maybe exist in Visio diagram or Visio files. They sit in a SharePoint somewhere. There might be in areas or different tools that might have been used over the years. And again, just mentioning the tools that come to mind here, but but usually in the past you had to integrate with Solution Manager. There were synchronization problems. Now the diagram is part of your documentation, and it's a live diagram because each block that you see there, it's tied to a business process or a transaction or a system. And this gives you the foundation for some of the things that we're going to we're gonna be jumping into. But before we jump into the next step, I want to talk about one more thing. So you can choose to build the business process from the beginning, from the ground up, manually mapping exactly what you're doing today. But also SAP also provides us with best practices, what's called process management best practices. Let's say you want to move to SAP or S4 HANA you want to deploy. You can download certain things from SAP and some of the best practices that SAP has, and you can load those in Solution Manager and analyze them and see, and then go through the exercise of mapping it, how that matches to the way you run your business today, and to kind of start realizing what the changes will be. So that's a very nice feature to accelerate the deployment or getting this piece completed. Now that we have built the foundation, the next step is we can talk about the business process monitoring. Before we get any more into business process monitoring, I just want to mention that solution documentation is not necessarily a prerequisite to enable business process monitoring. It is not a prerequisite. However, it's very nice to have the documentation in place because we will see very soon. Now, what is business process monitoring? So it's essentially monitoring, but a lot of times, and you probably all are using some form of technical monitoring, and what you're doing is you're looking for things from a technical perspective. Is the CPU free or fully used, memory, hard drives or disks, database? There are different things that you're looking at them from a technical perspective. However, a lot of times the functional side is not really paid attention to, or usually you run into snags, into an issue, and then you have to go in, run a bunch of T codes, figure out where the process has stopped. Maybe there might be an error with some information on the sales order, and things get stuck. The idea here is that we can proactively monitor different things in an SAP system from a functional perspective. And then there is the gray area between technical and functional, and you can monitor interfaces, and you can tie everything together. So, for example, a lot of times IDOCs are not paid attention to, orders that without, billing, with errors in billing documents, things that usually a human has to intervene and keep an eye on these things. So the idea is that business process monitoring will provide these things for you. And most of the time we see that, the division between the business and IT, you have a little bit of finger pointing. No, the problem is on the functional side. No, on the technical side. And this helps you really figure out where the problem lies in the whole hierarchy of issues. Now, some of the motivation for business process monitoring is really to give you transparency across organizational units and process variants. And one more thing I want to mention: business process monitoring does not necessarily mean that we're only looking for issues. Business process monitoring could be looking at the flow of orders. For example, what's my average time of completing a particular step in an order? Or, my average time is, 3.5 minutes to complete this step. So it's very useful information just from a statistical perspective. You can build trends, history, and you can see where are the areas that you can improve on. And really, that really helps you reduce the process costs, avoid errors. You can identify areas that cause a lot of issues. Sometimes it could be performance related. And, you can identify those areas and provide better experience for your end users, and ultimately end up with more reliable business data in the system. And overall, you will be much happier, much smoother operation, and reliable processing of core business processes. When we look at the capabilities from a business process monitoring, is really we have the managed systems or your satellite systems. They could be SAP in some cases and non-SAP. And then the tool, the MAI, the business process monitoring gathers all the data from these managed systems, and then you can do different things. You can build dashboards, you can build analytics, as we said. You can do monitoring and reaction. You can create incidents, alert inbox. You can integrate with other tools, which we do provide a solution for integrating with ServiceNow, so you can consume all of these in ServiceNow as incidents. You have email alert, guided procedures, different dashboards, metric reporting, historical data that you can look at this. And I promise you, we're getting to the end of the slides, and we're going to take a look at the live system. But I just wanted to show you an example of an end-to-end process. So if we build the end-to-end process completely, and then we want to add technical monitoring, what we're looking at here is a diagram, the BPMN tool in Solution Manager. So this is designed in Solman. It's a live diagram, as I mentioned, and then you see things like the systems across the top, and then you see the alert decorators. What that means is those squares and triangles and the warnings and the red lights. What those mean, what that means is that at each one of those steps, there are business process monitoring related KPIs that have been enabled. KPI, we all know it's a key performance indicator, and SAP delivers roughly about 1,000 KPIs, or maybe over 1,000 by now, KPIs that you can take out of the box, that you can use, and all of these KPIs are pretty much built with input from customers. Customers go to SAP and they request certain things. It'd be nice to have this and that. And over the years, those KPIs have grown, and that's how they became. So with that, just wanted to give you an idea of when the things are tied together. You can see how you can open a diagram and just look and see where the reds are. By the way, each of these areas is clickable. It'll take you into the monitoring. And with that said, I'll turn you over to Fisnik. And he can do the live demo, the operations from documents to the technical monitoring. Or sorry, business process monitoring.
Okay. So with Solution Manager 7.2, we have new UI, so it's priority based, and it looks way more better than the GUIs that we used to have in 7.1. Now in 7.2, it's all priority, and we have all these style builds. This is role based. So for process management, we call it solution documentation. For process management, we have these styles. It's called solution documentation to do all the documentation side. And then there is another tile called solution administration when we do the administration for a solution and all the technical details on it. So I had it open here, solution documentation, and this is the process management within Solution Manager. So what's process management? When we say about processes here in solution documentation, what we're doing is we're not just using this one as a documentation point. We're building the hierarchy. We're defining the process as they are from the abstract, concrete to actual executables. I will show you some examples. And why this is so important. This is really important when we're trying to do testing. So we model this process as a way that we run daily operation, and in order to test, we test this with the way we run. So we need to document all variation and all necessary ways of the process being executed, so we can do the testing. And not just the testing, but then we go to the monitoring, so we can actually monitor these processes the way we run them. And we can do, while we do the documentation, we can document our process in two different ways. We can document as end-to-end processes or as modular processes. So when I go to the modular processes, the end-to-end processes are the ones that it's the order to cash, procure to pay, and some others like end-to-end scenarios that we have as an organization. As a modular processes, it's divided by closely by what's happening inside a module of an organization, which means like in sales, in procurement, and all these particular part of the organization that are divided like departments, and the processes that go inside those departments. We document those processes, and from there, then we can go and take a look at more granular level of the process itself. And the Solution Manager also has branching that Donik mentioned. We can go. So the branching is it's a version of a solution. So we start with with an import branch, and then from the import branch we go to design. Design is to development, and from development we go to production. So all this work, we import the best practices, we import the documentation of the import branch, and then we work on it. And after we do all the process that we want to push to the design, and we go from design, and then we start deployment. So the design would be the place that we pick the process that we want to keep developing it furthermore. So we design it in the design branch, and all those are linked back to the actual system in the back end. So this is one of the diagrams that I created here for order to cash. So it's order to cash standard order. This is a very simple diagram. I will show more complex after this one. Yes, we can. So there is a question: can we have both end-to-end and modular? Yes, actually, we recommend to have end-to-end and modular processes. So if you have, so to complete your entire organization, we start with modular. So we build all the modular processes, and from the modular process, then we build the end-to-end process. But we can also build end-to-end without actually having all the modulars done. But the goal would be to have modular process, and for modular process, we use as building blocks to build the end-to-end process. I will show you in a bit how that works. So this is just an example to show how also graphical designer. This is part of the solution documentation, and it's super easy to use. I can just click here, and will show me all the options that I have to build, extend this design. I can add building blocks here. I can throw and sign me out. Yeah, so here we have all the modular, all the modulars that we created. This is for our demo environment. So if I click in sales, it will show me all what I have in sales. For example, I have sales order execution. I would have all the process within sales order execution. I would have all the process of budget planning. If I go to the finance, I would have all the scenarios for finance and production and manufacturing. I would have the process that are scenarios for manufacturing. And this is how you divide your organization based on the department and how your organization actually run the business today. Right? When I build all these modulars, I can go in and build the end-to-end process and grab these processes when I want to assemble an entire end-to-end process. For example, for procure to pay, I can have a short, which I'm using multiple variation here, and I have a standard, I have a requisition. These are just in our demo environment, but every business how it's run business is different. So we cannot say this will work for your business, but it might be a good example to show in general. But this is how you document your process. So if I go to standard order here, I will have here my diagrams, and if I select this as a process step now, think about it, this is a create quotation. From here, this is an executable. I can go to the process step library. If I click and go to the original, now I'm in process step library. Not only I'm organizing my processes, my process structure, but I'm also organizing my library. So based on my library now, this is my library, and this library has this building block, reusable object, which contains all necessary elements for me to build the end-to-end process and to build the modular process. So if I want to start doing the process, I will go and look in the library, where do I have the pieces to build this process? Once I have the library set it up, I will add here documentation. I will add as you can see here, the libraries based on what type of documentation. If I have, I will go and add the functional specification in the process library. I will go add the technical documents in the closer to executable, which would be in the development and executable library. I will add the configuration documentation that I have for configuration. I will add the configuration library, and if I had code reviews and other documents, I will add to the development library. And for interfaces, I will add it in the interface library, and this all will come together in the business processes. And once I add these documentation in the library, this documentation will be will be shown in the this documentation will be shown into the business processes at the process level. As I can show you here more this library concept. So I went from the higher structure. Now I went one level down into process step library. Now I click and I'm going another level down. I'm going to the executable library. Here is where I can see the executables assigned to the actual business process step. Now it shows how I'm doing all the usability. Right? So this is the object called VA21, which is create quotation. So I'm using this one I went from the business process, I went to the process step library, and from process step library, I went to executable library. Now, when I'm in executable library, I can say, okay, now tell me where do I use this executable? And this will show me a list where do I use the actual executable. It will show me all the places that I'm using. This is a brand new system, so it's not a lot of places because it's a demo environment. But this will give us a good picture where I'm using. And you can use this one where you're used in a lot of places, but this is one of the places that you want to know where are you using. Imagine now when you're trying to do a change and you want to know how the change will affect other teams or other parts of your organization. If I make a change somewhere, it might affect others, and what object that we are sharing with them. And so that's very important when we think about process management. So there's a tool also here called BPCA that does that for us. But let's go back to the diagram and show more in detail how Solution Manager has integrated. So I can create for every process, I can have the option to create collaboration and process diagram. I'm going to show you this process diagram that I was showing earlier, where and how we can edit these diagrams, which is super easy to edit and to modify them. And for these diagrams, we can also go on a level deeper. These will go and or everything is linked back to the backend system, so we can assign alerts to monitor every step in the process flow, because these are process flows that show how we run the particular process, from how we run business, right? And we go show another diagram. We're busy. So, and once we this one open, and once we go to the once we have the processes and the diagrams built in, and we assigned alerts, and what we can do is we can go to the business process monitoring. There is this process monitoring a role here, and on the business process monitoring, the tile, once I click this tile, it will open the Solution Manager business process monitoring, and on here will show all the processes. I can select the particular process that I want to, and on these processes, I can then monitor this particular process, and will show me all the objects, alerts, warnings, and we'll have the process, and I can go furthermore, and I can open the actual process. Here I can open the actual process, and the light here, these lights, they show what they are, or they are KPIs, key performance indicator, that show the status of the alert that I assigned to a particular KPI. Meaning, I want to monitor this creation of create quotation, and I assigned actually an alert to this one. Let's open the alert. So it says sales document with delivery block. So this one will show us. See, none of them met the criteria that I set in. If we can set the criteria, might be this is the criteria from this day to this day, and then you can put the lower and higher threshold to meet our criteria. But this our system, it's a demo environment, so we don't have a lot of orders created. But usually you will see all high number over there, and you can go in and see the trend and all the details. So this will show us how many orders do I have in blog that are delayed for shipping and for delivery. Then I can go in and fix these orders in the actual send me to the system, and I can go in and fix the actual orders. It has this link that goes back to the actually managed system where I'm running these orders. And let me show you the other one that was more complex. This one will open the actual the other requisite, this one. So this is another one that was just a simple to see how this is not more like a real life requisition process when it starts and how it goes through. And let's see this one when we added business KPIs, how does it look like? Or like a real life scenario. And while it's running, we can also go in here and see from another metric perspective, we can see all the metrics and purchase order. We can view it from the diagram perspective, we can view it from actual metrics and see the details of a specific metric. And yes, so we can drill into the details and see how many metrics here are 10. If I click here, it will open the actual backend system to see the details. So we can go and this trend will show the trend based on day and how we set it up. But this is our demo system, doesn't have a lot of data. It's a brand new system. And yes, so this is I can select any of these processes, which actually are coming from the solution documentation, from the process that I have documented in here into the I'm in the process library. I have to go to the business processes, and in the business process, those documents that I'm more that I want to monitor them, they will go in, and then I can these process and this order to cash processing, order to cash and processing, procure to pay that I want to monitor them. So yeah, this is the one that I was trying to show you guys. It has a lot of more alerts and red and yellow, and so this is you can put these depends on your key pain point that you want to monitor. Then yes, you can set it up and you can monitor your process. So the benefit here is that everything is linked back to solution documentation, and solution documentation you will be your single source of truth to help you do not just only the solution only to document sort of documents, but also to this business process hierarchy. When you build this one, this will be your process management, that you can add all the related documents to it, and you can add test cases, and you can add monitoring objects. So you have a 360 view of entire 360 view of your business process. So that's the goal that you want to be in, have an overview what's going on with your process, and then from there you can do all the testing and monitoring and that you actually need. Let me show you here that all the things that you can attach to a particular process, right? We can add all documentation, diagrams, and executables and operation objects. And those documentation you can assign also and other things to the process tab. But it's important for us, like the process, to have that decomposition. So we know how our business runs based on these processes. Show you also the diagram. It's super easy to use. It's all priori. It's a good UI, and you can drag and drop these. You can do all rename them. You have an edit, and this is the elements. And for example, for this particular process, we can have multiple process links. We can have all type of data that are linked, test cases, best practices document, and collaboration diagrams, building blocks, configuration unit that come from the particular library that made up this all information for this process. They are not stored in here. They are reference, and they're coming from the library into here. So it's one of the benefits of having it. So now this is how easy it is to use a diagram. I can just drag and drop processes. I can do all kind of fancy stuff in here. And from here, I can add gates, I can add events, which are interfaces, and build my end-to-end process. This is one interface that's being used with.
Please feel free to reach out to us. We'll send a file. You already received emails from us to get to this point. Just feel free to respond back to that, and we'll get you in touch with whoever you want to speak with. All right, everyone, I hope you have a great day and stay safe out there.